I'm Daniel Marin. Welcome to 9 on 9, our new weekly interview show. This week we are talking about our schools as they push forward amid the pandemic. Our guests tonight are San Elizario School Superintendent Dr. Jeannie Mesa Chavez and Maribel Macias, Assistant Superintendent at Socorro ISD in charge of administrative services. We have a lot to get to tonight, so let's go ahead and get started. 9 on 9 starts right now. I want to thank you for joining us. I do want to start with Ms. Macias over at SISD. As you all are trying to get back to, I guess, as close to normal as we can be at this point, what's been the biggest challenge for the district so far?
The biggest challenge is that we're in COVID. COVID is ever changing, and just the change. We're completely flexible. We pivot on a dime. And the biggest challenges that we've had, of course, is the social emotional state of our faculty, staff, our students. Pretty much everybody has been impacted with this pandemic, so it's so important as we're transitioning back into, as you mentioned, our normal, that we keep that in mind and that we provide that support to our faculty, to our staff, to our students that have lost loved ones, and that we have our counselors in place to allow us to support and move forward.
Dr. Mesa Chavez, what about over at San Elizario? What's been the challenge for you all? Same, I would imagine?
I would agree. You know, the social emotional learning of our students, if we can't have that in place, then anything else, you know, instruction is really secondary, and it has been because we want to ensure that our students are safe. We understand the struggles that our families are going through, you know, not only on the social and emotional part, but we have families who have been impacted. You know, they are the first responders for their own families, and so not being able to, in some cases, go to work or not be able to have the support for their families on the financial side has been stressful, and that causes stress on families, which in turn causes stress on our students. So we definitely have had the use of our counselors. We've also had the issue of food insecurities. We partnered with El Pasoans Fighting Hunger, and you know, I had a student who was standing in line at 6 o'clock in the morning with their parent and a backpack. They had no car. Obviously, we did get them transported back home, but when you have food insecurities, you know, you have social emotional situations going on, the loss of family. That's what our district is focused on.
Ms. Macias, so many teachers and educators and staff, they were very nervous to return to campus. A lot of them were just scared to go back. What are you hearing now? Has that gotten any better?
Of course, every single day we meet different needs. We've been at this for over a year. Isn't that amazing? March of 2020, that's when pandemic hit, and we started developing our safety plans. And as we brought everybody together, the biggest piece that we found is the communication. We would have community meetings, faculty meetings, of course, our leadership meetings, to ensure that as we developed our protocols, people were able to give us input. In Socorro ISD, we're still following the same safety protocols that we developed from day one. Masks are required. We have the temperature checks as individuals come in. Our technology department, they developed an e-swipe. We call it e-swipe, an electronic safety wellness protocol that every single day there's a little app. You click on it. It has the COVID questions. You're able to input what your response is for the day. If you're not feeling well, you stay home. If you stay home, you get a call within 24 hours from our campus nurses if it's a student, or from our employee clinic if it's an adult or one of our employees. So we do our own contact tracing. There's been so many things that we've been modifying to ensure that people feel safe. The other thing that happened, I think it was back in November, we actually received the Abbott rapid test. We have over 500 amazing employees that volunteered to be rapid testers. Every single one of our 49 campuses is certified as a rapid testing site, including the District Service Center and Transportation. So we're testing over 3,500 individuals on a weekly basis. And the last thing is vaccinations. Every single employee that has wanted a vaccine has been vaccinated or is waiting for their second dose. They already got their first dose. So everything on our safety plan, we just completely continue to add as things come together.
Dr. Mesa Chavez, over at San Eli, what are you hearing from your teachers? How are they feeling? How's the morale over there?
It's been tough all the way around, and it wasn't until right after spring break that we turned around and said, okay, we're ready. It's taken us some time. It's been steady because we have taken our time to talk to our teachers, to talk to our leadership teams. As a matter of fact, on the day that the governor lifted the use of face masks, we actually had a board meeting that same day that was already scheduled, and I submitted an item to the board where I was requesting their support so that we can continue to keep our masks for all of our employees, as well as maintaining all of the other safety protocols. We know that our teachers have been worried and they have been concerned, but I know they're also very proud of the fact that we had a slow and steady transition without rushing. We had teachers' face shields that they could wear as an option. We have desk shields. I personally took the opportunity to walk every classroom where a teacher was going to be teaching before, because we know that if our teachers feel safe teaching, then they can provide that calmness to our students. We have a great number of our employees already vaccinated, but we're still continuing the precautions. I don't think we know enough about the vaccine and even enough about the actual virus to say that any of these safety measures can be lifted.
I want to keep going with vaccinations in just a moment, but we do have to take our first quick break. Stay with us. You are watching 9 on 9 here on KTSM 9 News. Thanks for being with us. And welcome back to 9 on 9. We are talking our schools this evening when it comes to the pandemic reopening, vaccinations for teachers. I'm joined by Dr. Jeannie Mesa Chavez, the superintendent at San Elizario Independent School District, and Maribel Macias, the assistant superintendent for administrative services over at Socorro ISD. I'm going to go back to Maribel, Ms. Macias. When it comes to getting the vaccines to your teachers, how is that process working? Are you working with the state? Where do the vaccines come from?
Yes, we're very blessed. Dr. Espinosa from the beginning started reaching out to partners that we had immunize El Paso. As I mentioned before, in February, they started giving vaccines to our 1A recipients and 1B. We also been working with the city of El Paso, with Hospitals of Providence. UTEP was amazing. And we actually have an employee clinic in Socorro Independent School District, and they've received doses from the state. So they're also providing vaccinations. So as of last week on Wednesday, all of our employees that have wanted a vaccine have received at least their first dose, and the others are fully vaccinated. One thing that we're doing is currently we're actually reaching out to our students. You know that it's all encompassing, and they're actually creating a PSA for us, because one thing that we found is that there's many questions about the vaccination. We do have a percentage of our employees that have questions about the vaccine, if they should take it or not. So what we're doing is we're doing research to make sure that they know about the vaccines that are available, and that way when they make that informed decision, they're able to feel comfortable in getting the vaccine, because we do have a small percentage of employees that right now are hesitant, because we do ask them, would you like the vaccine? Yes, no, or maybe. And we do have a percentage of employees that give us the maybe as a response. So we want to be able to create that information, or provide that information for them so that they could make an informed decision and feel comfortable in getting the vaccine.
Dr. Mesa Chavez over at San Elizario, how is it going with the vaccines? Do you see the majority of your teachers do want to get it?
You know, we have the majority of our teachers anxious. It's actually been one of the things that they have asked for. Anytime, you know, I made it a point to meet with our faculty, our staff, and you know, at their monthly meetings. And one of their biggest requests, the number one request, was what about the vaccines? And that's been the request, really, not just of our teachers, of all of our employees. And so the fact that we have been able to partner with the city, the fact that we have been able to partner with the Providence hospitals, the fact that we've been able to partner with Isleta ISD when they received vaccines, that really does speak to what was mentioned as far as El Paso being strong, because we have collaborated with neighboring school districts to try to help out, because we all serve one community, and that community of children is anxious to get back. There's a lot of memories that have been missed to be made, and so our teachers are anxious to get vaccines. And so when that opportunity has presented itself, it's been offered to our teachers as well as other employees. Let me tell you, I've received emails of thank you, as if I was directly responsible, and I give credit to all of our team and just the county and city officials that have collaborated to make this happen for our community.
Ms. Macias, over at SISD, if there's a situation in which there's an educator or a teacher who's not comfortable getting the vaccine, they do not want to be vaccinated, and that in turn makes the parent of a child uncomfortable, is there an option to maybe move them to a different classroom, or they just stay to remote learning? If that presents itself, how does that work?
Yes. As far as our teachers, faculty, staff, all of our employees, they have the option to take the vaccine or not. As far as our parents, they always have the ability to come and ask for a transfer. However, we have our safety protocols in place. We have desk dividers. We have, of course, our mask, sanitizer. We have the social distancing within the classroom. That has not presented itself. If there is any questions or concern, they're more than happy to talk to our administration or to give us a call. But at this point, we haven't seen that as a question or a concern because we have all the other safety protocols in place.
I do want to talk about education because we are still trying to educate these children amid this pandemic, but we're going to talk about that when we come back from this next break. You're watching KTSM 9 News, 9 on 9. Stay with us. And welcome back to 9 on 9. We are talking education this evening amid the pandemic, and I am joined by Dr. Mesa Chavez of San Elizario, superintendent there. We're trying to educate our children, and there's just so much we've been talking about tonight already, things like PPE, vaccinations, but I mean, we're still trying to get these kids to learn, and it's been very difficult with remote learning, and so many kids, it seems like, are falling behind because of the challenges. Do you all have any kind of maybe special training, or how are you going about trying to get these kids educated, trying to get them where they should be right now, but also trying to make up for everything that they've lost over the last year? How are you going about that?
Well, first and foremost, it's really about taking care of the child because there's a lot of things going on at home with each one of our students. We obviously are wanting to make sure that our kids are learning, that our students are engaging. We have, our social workers, our counselors that are reaching out to families, when the children are not logging on. And it has been a challenge, for students from home. We have also seen children who have excelled learning from home. And so we have had to kind of balance that out. But in terms of trying to make sure that they're getting the education that they need, it really has begun with trying to connect, having our teachers have that time to have a conversation with them about what's going on at home so that the learning can even begin. I mean, just think about it. This whole pandemic has enabled us to have parents go directly into the classrooms of our teachers, whether it was at their home and now that they're back on campus. And so the same is this, it goes the same for our teachers. They have been able to go into the homes of our students, and sometimes it's cameras on for kids and sometimes the cameras are off. And so it really has been the outreach that has to continue from our counseling, from our social workers, our teachers. Before anything else, I think that, recognizing that, yes, we want to ensure that our students are reading and writing, but without them having that connection to knowing how to survive this whole pandemic, because there's a lot of things impacting them. We do have, extended tutoring. We do have opportunities for students to attend tutoring also in person or virtually on Saturdays. Like I said, there's some students that are excelling, and there are some parents who are, turning around and having their kids virtually continue to engage. And I'll be very honest too, I am also depending, like many of our other school districts or superintendents, that the state to deliver the money that is needed for our schools to continue to function. Talk about the money that has been spent for PPE, and I am in favor of making sure that we know where our students are. But there has been some challenges as far as having the discussion of whether we assess our kids with the STAR and the value in that. And so it's a lot to consider, but definitely it's been a little over a year of COVID, but we know that the learning loss is multiplied several times over. And
Ms. Macias, over at SISD, how are you all combating that learning loss? Is there special training for teachers to help get the kids back to where they need to be? How is that working?
Yes, our teachers are our heroes. They have learned a completely new craft within this year. They have had instruction on how to work virtually, of how to transition, because some of our teachers are actually teaching hand over hand with students on site, face to face, and they're actually providing that lesson to students that are learning virtually. So it has been truly a year of learning, and I do echo the fact that the Texas Education Agency has to provide that funding to the districts. We know what we need to do. If we have to adjust our calendar, we need that money to do it. If we continue, and we will continue with our safety protocols, because again, we're in the eye of the storm. We have to continue doing what we're doing until our students are vaccinated. But in order to do that, we need the funding in order to provide those systems in place. Every single district is a little different. So that's where TEA has to trust their districts and to ensure that the funding goes directly to our superintendent so that what we need is actually put in place for the end of this year and for the beginning of the next.
You called it a year of learning. That is so true. A year of learning for all of us in so many different ways. We have to take another quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about what it's like to be in sports or in band or in theater amid a pandemic. This is 9 on 9 on KTSM 9 News. Stay with us. And welcome back to 9 on 9. We're talking schools and the pandemic, and we're running out of time, but I did want to touch on with Mrs. Macias from SISD, just what it's been like when it comes to things like sports, band, theater. It's such an important part, these supplemental electives for the kids, and it's part of the school experience. How is that working right now?
We've been back full force since September 8th. Initially, we were virtual instruction when we started. But as soon as the city gave us the opportunity to bring individuals back, our sports, our fine arts, they have been, again, a little bit of a hybrid, but they've been back. So they've actually helped us develop all of our safety protocols. What I loved is fine arts, they actually came together as a region. And they actually came together and identified, what are we going to participate in? Are we going to travel? Are we not going to travel? And all of that was done collectively. With sports, we follow UIL. And with that, again, the testing has been invaluable. The Abbott rapid test, that way, if our students are advancing and they're traveling, we know that everybody on that bus has been rapid tested and doesn't have any of the proteins as they're transitioning and going off to competition. I know that they modified a couple of the schedules based on whenever we had certain teams that were quarantined. But at a certain point, we just had to move forward. And I know that they all came together. Sometimes they agreed, they didn't agree, but we all came together to make sure that we provided that opportunity for our students, because we know in education that sports, fine arts, robotics, all of those amazing things that our students do, that keeps them in school and that keeps them motivated to pass their classes.
We're running short on time, but I have a final question for each one of you. I'll start with Dr. Mesa Chavez over at San Elizario. As a smaller school district, what do you think some of the disadvantages have been for you all going through this, and what do you think some of the advantages have been for you all?
You know, I think that one of the disadvantages is that we actually have to do what the big districts have to do, just a less amount of people to be able to help. And so that's been tough, but I know that, you know, one of the best things that we've seen come out of all of this is to see our cross-country team compete and actually win a state title. Like, how do you not only train mentally and physically, but to keep themselves healthy, and what they had to do so that their families also understood what their dedication was going to include. So I know that as a small district, we're ready to compete with big or small, and we're just happy that we've been able to be that guide for our community.
And Ms. Macias over at SISD, the reverse of that question, as a big district, what have been the advantages and the disadvantages navigating this last year?
Yes, again, big thank you to Dr. Espinosa, our superintendent. The advantage is that we do have that expertise within our team. He brought everybody together, ensured that every single entity knew how to move forward and what we were going to do. And of course, the disadvantage is that we're huge. We're the second largest district in the El Paso area, so it's truly communication. That has been the thing that has been on top priority. So as we're developing or modifying certain things, that we make sure that we get that information to everybody so that everybody's on board to ensure that we move forward.
We could talk about this for another half hour. There's so much to get into, but we are out of time for this evening. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Jeannie Mesa Chavez, the superintendent over at San Elizario ISD, and Maribel Macias, assistant superintendent over at Socorro ISD. Thank you both so much for being with us. And thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week.